The Great Hall of Vetherus Prime was silent as Ambassador Linda Morrison walked toward the center platform. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with gray hair and tired eyes. But she walked with her back straight and her head held high. Around her, thousands of alien beings watched from their seats, their strange eyes following her every step. The Galactic Council had ruled this part of the universe for over 10,000 years. 12 species sat on the High Council, each one ancient and powerful beyond human understanding. They had welcomed humanity into their community just 90 years ago, when the first Earth ships had stumbled into their space. Back then, they had called humans interesting, promising, a young species with potential. Now they called them dangerous. High Arbiter. Zelkoth rose from his throne at the far end of the hall. He was a reptilian creature, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales the color of polished bronze and eyes like burning coals. His voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. Ambassador Morrison, you stand before this council to answer for the crimes of your species. How do you respond to the charges? Linda looked up at him without fear. She had read the charges already. Humanity had expanded too fast, colonizing 14 worlds in less than a century. They had refused to share their fusion technology with the Council. They had built warships without permission. They had declined to let Council inspectors examine their military bases. We have broken no laws, Linda said, her voice clear and calm. We have simply refused to be controlled. A murmur ran through the crowd. Several Council members shifted in their seats, their alien faces showing expressions that might have been anger or surprise. Your species is aggressive, Zelkoth continued. Your history is filled with war and violence. You fight among yourselves constantly. You cannot be trusted with the power you are gathering. Every species has a violent past, Linda replied. That is how life survives. We have learned from our mistakes. We are building something better. But she knew her words meant nothing. The Council had already made their decision. She could see it in their eyes, in the way they looked at her like she was something dirty on their floor. This trial was just a show, a performance for the rest of the galaxy to see. Zelkoth raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent again. By a unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby exiled from Council space. You have 1 standard cycle to withdraw all your people beyond the outer rim, any human vessel found within our borders after that time will be destroyed without warning. Felt the words hit her like physical blows, but she did not let it show on her face. She simply nodded once, slowly. You will regret this decision, she said quietly. Not because we will seek revenge. We are not that kind of people. You will regret it because you have just thrown away the only species in this galaxy that never stops growing. One day you will need us, and you will remember this moment. She turned and walked out of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Back on Earth, President Samuel Grant watched the broadcast with a heavy heart. He was sitting in his office in Geneva, surrounded by his closest advisors. Admiral Patricia Cole stood by the window, her face hard as stone. Dr. Henry Liu sat in a chair, his hands shaking slightly. It is done, Grant said softly. They have cast us out. We should fight, Admiral Cole said immediately. Our ships are good. Our people are brave. We do not have to accept this. Fight 12 species at once. Dr. Liu shook his head. We would be destroyed in a month, maybe less. Grant stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Geneva was beautiful in the spring, with flowers blooming in every park and children playing in the streets. These people had no idea their world was about to change forever. We will not fight, Grant said finally. Not now. Not like this. He turned to face his advisors. But we will not simply accept defeat either. They want us gone? Fine, we will go. We will take our people to the outer rim, to the places they consider worthless, and we will build something new there. The outer rim is a wasteland, Admiral Cole said. Unstable stars, barren worlds, dangerous radiation. They are sending us there to die. Then we will not die, Grant replied simply. We will adapt. We will survive. We will grow. That is what humanity does. The exodus began 3 months later. 12 billion people across 14 worlds packed their belongings and prepared to leave everything they knew behind. Some went willingly, believing in the dream of a new beginning. Others went in anger, swearing revenge on the species that had betrayed them. Most went in fear, not knowing what waited for them in the darkness beyond council space. The journey took nearly a year. Massive colony ships carried millions of people at a time, jumping through space in long, dangerous leaps. Many ships were old and poorly maintained. Some broke down along the way. Others simply vanished, lost in the void between stars. Linda Morrison was on one of the last ships to leave. She stood at the observation window as Earth grew smaller and smaller behind them, till it was just a tiny blue dot among millions of stars. She had been born on that world. She had raised her children there. She had expected to die there. Now she would never see it again. Ambassador. A young officer appeared at her side. His name was Kevin, barely 20 years old, with eager eyes and a nervous smile. The captain wants to know if you would like to address the passengers. Linda thought about it for a moment, then nodded. She made her way to the ship's main hall, where thousands of people had gathered, their faces showing every emotion from grief to rage to quiet, determination. She stepped up to the podium and looked out at them. These were her people. Doctors and teachers and farmers and soldiers, parents holding their children. Old couples holding hands, young people with their whole lives ahead of them. I know you are afraid, she began. I know you are angry. I know many of you feel like we have lost everything. And in some ways we have. We have lost our homes. We have lost our place in the galactic community. We have lost the future we thought we would have. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we have not lost what matters most. We have not lost each other. We have not lost our spirit. We have not lost our ability to dream and build and grow. The Council thinks they have destroyed us. They think we will wither and die in the darkness. But they do not understand us. They never did. She raised her voice, filling the hall with her words. We are humanity. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We have climbed out of every hole fate has ever thrown us into. This is just another hole. A bigger one, maybe? A deeper one. But we will climb out of it too. And when we do, we will be stronger than ever before. The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Soon the whole hall was filled with applause and cheers, the sound washing over Linda like a wave. She smiled for the first time in months. They would survive this. She was sure of it. 5 years had passed since the exile, and humanity had changed more than anyone could have imagined. The scattered colonies in the Outer Rim had slowly come together, connected by trade routes and communication networks that grew stronger every day. What had started as desperate survival had become something much more powerful. Maria Santos stood on the balcony of her office, looking out at the city that had risen from the red desert of New Canaan. 5 years ago, this world had been nothing but dust and rocks. Now towers of glass and steel reached toward the sky. Factories hummed with activity day and night. Ships came and went from the spaceport, carrying goods and people to dozens of other worlds. She was 53 years old, with dark hair streaked with gray and hands roughened by years of hard work. Before the exile, she had been the administrator of a small mining colony on the edge of human space. Nobody important. Nobody special. Just a woman who knew how to get things done. Now she was about to become the first chancellor of the Terran Dominion. Are you ready? Asked Admiral Patricia Cole, stepping onto the balcony beside her. Maria smiled slightly. No, but I never am. That has never stopped me before. The founding ceremony took place in the central plaza of New QAnon City. Over 100,000 people had gathered to witness it, and billions more watched through screens on dozens of worlds. Representatives from every human colony were present. Standing together under the harsh light of their new sun, Maria walked to the podium. Feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders, she had written her speech a dozen times, throwing away each draft and starting over. In the end, she had decided to speak from her heart. 5 years ago, We were thrown away like garbage, she began, her voice carrying across the plaza. The Galactic Council looked at us and saw a threat. They saw a species that grew too fast, dreamed too big, reached too far. They decided we were dangerous. So they cast us out, sending us to the darkest corner of the galaxy to die. She paused. Looking out at the faces before her, they made a mistake. A murmur of agreement ran through the crowd. We did not die. We adapted. We built. We grew. We took the scraps they gave us and turned them into something beautiful. Look around you. Look at this city that did not exist 5 years ago. Look at the ships in the sky. Look at each other. We did this. We built this. Not because we had help. Not because we had advantages. We built this because we refused to give up. She raised her hand, and behind her a massive flag unfurled. It showed a blue earth against a field of stars, surrounded by a golden ring. Today, we stop being refugees. Today, we stop being victims. Today, we become something new. The Terran Dominion is born. Not as a replacement for what we lost, but as something better, something stronger, something that will last forever. The crowd erupted in cheers that seemed to shake the very ground. In the months that followed, the Dominion began to take shape. A new government was formed, with Maria Santos as chancellor and a council of representatives from every major colony. Laws were written. Institutions were created. The chaos of survival slowly transformed into the order of civilization. Dr. Henry Liu led the scientific revolution that made it all possible. He had been the chief scientist of Earth's Global Research Initiative before the exile. Now he commanded an army of researchers spread across dozens of worlds, all working toward the same goal, making humanity stronger. The council species have had thousands of years to develop their technology, he told his team during one of their early meetings. We do not have that luxury. We need to find shortcuts. We need to think differently. We need to do things they said were impossible, and they did. Within 2 years, human ships were faster than anything the Council had ever built. Within 3 years, human weapons were more powerful. Within 5 years, humanity had developed technologies that the Council's scientists had dismissed as fantasy. The secret was simple. Humans were not afraid to fail. Council scientists spent decades studying problems from every angle before attempting solutions. Human scientists tried 10 different approaches, failed at 9 of them, and learned something from each failure. What the Council did in a century, humanity did in a decade. Admiral Patricia Cole built the military that would protect their new civilization. She was 62 now, her hair completely white, but her mind was sharper than ever. She had spent her whole career studying warfare. She understood something that the Council species had forgotten. War was not just about weapons. It was about will. Our ships do not need to be bigger than theirs, she told her officers. They need to be better. Our soldiers do not need to be stronger. They need to be smarter. We fight as one. We protect each other. We never leave anyone behind. That is our advantage. She established the Iron Doctrine, a set of principles that would guide the Dominion military for generations. Never fire first. Always fire last. Defend the innocent. Protect what matters. Win quickly, or do not fight at all. The Outer Rim. Once considered worthless by the Council, revealed its secrets to humanity. Daniel Porter, a merchant captain who had lost everything in the exile, became one of the great explorers of the new era. His ship, the Wandering Star, traveled farther than any human vessel had gone before. Mapping new worlds and discovering resources that the Council had never found, on a dead moon orbiting a dying star, Porter's crew discovered something remarkable: the ruins of an ancient civilization that had existed. Millions of years before the Council was born, strange machines sat in vast underground chambers, still humming with power. Writing covered the walls, a language that no one could read. Who were they? Asked Porter's navigator, a young woman named Sarah, as they walked through the silent halls. I do not know, Porter replied. But they were here long before the Council, long before anyone we know, and somehow They disappeared. Completely. He reached out and touched one of the machines. It was warm, vibrating slightly beneath his fingers. Whatever happened to them, they left their knowledge behind. And now that knowledge belongs to us. The artifacts from the ancient civilization were transported to New QAnon, where Dr. Liu's team began studying them. They could not understand most of what they found. The technology was too advanced, too alien, but they learned enough to push human science forward by decades. By the 10th year of exile, the Terran Dominion had become something remarkable. 47 colonies spread across the Outer Rim, connected by trade routes and communication networks. A fleet of 300 warships patrolled their borders. A population of 15 billion people worked and lived and dreamed together. Chancellor Maria Santos, now in her 60s, addressed the Dominion on the anniversary of the founding. 10 years ago, we were nothing, she said. Refugees running from a galaxy that did not want us. Today, we are a nation, a civilization, a power that no one can ignore. The Council thought they were sending us to our graves. Instead, they gave us the freedom to become what we were always meant to be. She looked at the camera, knowing that billions of eyes were watching her across the stars. We are not finished growing. We are not finished building. We are not finished reaching for the impossible. This is just the beginning. The Terran Dominion will endure for 1,000 years. 10,000 years. We will outlast the council that exiled us. We will outlast every empire that has ever existed. Because we are humanity. And we never stop. Far away, in the comfortable halls of Atheris Prime, High Arbiter Zelkoth read reports about the human settlements in the Outer Rim. He had expected them to be dying by now. Their colonies collapsing, their people begging to return. Instead, they were thriving. For the first time in his long life, Zelkoth felt something he had never experienced before. He felt afraid. The Velthari had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. They were an insectoid species, with hard black shells and compound eyes that saw everything at once. Their empire stretched across 100 star systems, and they had never lost a war. They did not know how to lose. The very concept was foreign to them, when they decided to expand into the Outer Rim. They expected to find nothing but empty space and dying colonies. The intelligence reports said the human refugees were scattered and weak, barely surviving on barren worlds. Easy targets. Easy prey, Commander Threx led the expedition himself. He was old for a Velthari, nearly 200 years, battle scars covering his shell and a reputation for brutal efficiency. He brought 6 warships, more than enough to crush any resistance. More than enough to teach the humans their place. Their first target was a small moon called Haven's Rest, according to their scans. It had about 3,000 inhabitants, mostly miners and farmers who had fled to the Outer Rim after the exile. A simple raid. A quick victory. Nothing more. Gregory Palmer was waiting for them. He was 62 years old, the face like weathered leather, and eyes that had seen too much death. He had fought in Earth's last great war, back before First Contact changed everything. He had buried friends and enemies alike. He had sworn to never fight again, but when the exile came, the Dominion needed soldiers. It needed commanders who knew how to protect people. So Gregory put on his uniform one more time and took command of the 7th Defense Squadron, stationed at Haven's Rest. He had 4 patrol ships and 2 orbital defense platforms. Against 6 Velthari warships, it should have been no contest. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young man named Marcus, "the Velthari are hailing us. They are demanding our immediate surrender." Gregory leaned back in his chair, watching the enemy ships on his display. They were big, nearly 3 times the size of his largest vessel. Their weapons bristled from every surface. They looked unstoppable. He smiled. "Open a channel." The face of Commander Threx appeared on the screen. His mandibles clicked as he spoke. His voice translated into English by the ship's computer. "Human Commander, you are outmatched and outgunned. Surrender your colony, and your people will be spared. Resist, and you will all die." Gregory studied the alien for a long moment. Behind him, his crew watched in tense silence. Commander Threx, Gregory said calmly, you have entered Terran Dominion space. You have exactly 1 minute to reverse course and leave. If you do not, we will open fire. Threx made a sound that might have been laughter. You threaten us? With those tiny ships? Human, you clearly do not understand your situation. I understand it perfectly, Gregory replied. You have bigger ships, more weapons, more experience. By any reasonable measure, you should win this fight. He leaned forward, his eyes hard as steel. But I have something you do not have. I have weapons you have never seen. I have tactics you have never faced. And I have people who would rather die than let you touch their homes. He checked his watch. You now have 40 seconds. Threx cut the channel. On the display, Gregory could see the Velthari ships moving into attack formation. They were not leaving. He had not expected them to. All ships, Gregory announced. Battle stations. Launch sequence Delta. Fire on my mark. The next 3 minutes would become legendary. Gregory's ships fired first, releasing a swarm of fusion missiles that moved faster than anything the Velthari had ever seen. The missiles were small, barely visible on sensors, but they carried enough destructive power to crack a planet. They had been developed in secret over the past decade, using principles that Council scientists had dismissed as impossible. 2. Velthari ships exploded before they could even raise their shields. The missiles tore through their hulls like paper, igniting their reactors in blinding flashes of light. A third ship lost its entire engine section and began spinning helplessly into space. Commander Threx screamed orders at his crew, but nothing worked the way it was supposed to. And jamming signals scrambled their communications. Human targeting systems tracked their movements with impossible precision. Human weapons punched through their armor like it was not even there. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, 3 Velthari ships were destroyed, and the remaining 3 were fleeing toward Council space as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. Over 2,000 Velthari soldiers were dead, including Commander Threx himself, killed when a missile struck his bridge directly. Gregory's forces had lost 12 people. 12 too many, in his opinion, but a victory by any measure. Sir, Marcus said quietly, we did it. We actually did it. Gregory nodded slowly, watching the retreating enemy ships disappear from his display. He felt no joy. He felt no triumph. He only felt tired. Send a message to command, he said. Tell them the Velthari came. Tell them they will not be coming back. News of the battle spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Council species, who had dismissed humanity as primitive refugees, suddenly realized they had made a terrible mistake. The species they had exiled had become something dangerous, something powerful, something that could not be ignored. Chancellor Maria Santos received 37 diplomatic messages within a week. Former allies who had abandoned humanity during the exile suddenly wanted to talk. Former enemies who had voted for the exile suddenly wanted to negotiate. Everyone wanted to know what humanity had been doing for 15 years. Santos read each message carefully, then set them aside. What do you want to do? Asked Admiral Cole.
Nothing, Santos replied.
They threw us away when we needed them. They do not get to come crawling back just because they realized we are still alive. Some of them might be useful allies. But I will not beg for their friendship. I will not pretend the exile never happened. If they want to deal with us, they will come to us. On our terms, not theirs. The Velthari hegemony, humiliated by their defeat, demanded that the Council take action against humanity. They wanted a joint military response. They wanted revenge for their fallen soldiers. They wanted the humans punished for daring to defend themselves. High Arbiter Zelkoth faced an impossible choice. Attacking humanity would start a war that the Council might not win. The Battle of Haven's Rest had proven that human weapons were far more advanced than anyone had suspected. But doing nothing would make the Council look weak. It would encourage other species to challenge their authority. In the end, Zelkoth chose a third option. He sent a private message to Chancellor Santos, bypassing all official channels. We made an error, the message read. Let us discuss terms for your return to the galactic community. Santos read the message 3 times before responding. She thought about everything humanity had suffered. The exile. The journey. The years of struggle and sacrifice. She thought about all the people who had died to build the Dominion. All the dreams that had been crushed. All the hope that had been betrayed. Her response was short. We are no longer interested in being part of your council, but we are willing to discuss mutual non-aggression. If you want to talk, send a real ambassador. We will receive them with the respect they deserve. She paused, then added one more line. We remember what you did to us. We will never forget, but we are willing to move forward if you are. The message sent, Santos turned back to the window. The city of New Canaan stretched before her, gleaming in the light of their alien sun. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars she could see, the council was learning a lesson they should have learned 15 years ago. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity was not to be dismissed. Humanity was here to stay, and the galaxy would never be the same. 20 years after the exile, the darkness between the stars came alive. The Kethmer swarm arrived without warning, emerging from a region of space that had never been explored. They were not a species in any normal sense. They were a hunger-given form, a billion creatures moving as one, driven by a single terrible purpose: to consume everything in their path. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody knew what they wanted. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked, devouring worlds and moving on to the next, leaving nothing but empty shells behind them. The Galactic Council reacted slowly, as they always did. Meetings were held. Debates were conducted. Reports were filed. By the time they understood the threat, the swarm had already destroyed 4 worlds and killed over 8 billion beings. Admiral Zeroth of the Silicari Collective led the combined council fleet into battle at Vorna Station, a strategic point that could not be allowed to fall. 1,200 warships from 8 different species formed the largest military force the council had ever assembled. They were confident. They were prepared. They had planned for every possibility. They had not planned for this. The swarm attacked in waves. Millions of small craft pouring out of massive carrier ships that seemed to stretch across the horizon. They did not use tactics or strategy. They simply overwhelmed their enemies through sheer numbers, absorbing every attack and keeping coming. The battle lasted 6 days. When it was over, the council fleet had been reduced to 300 operational vessels. Admiral Zeroth was dead, along with most of his senior officers. The swarm had lost perhaps 10% of their forces. They kept coming. High Arbiter Zelkoth sat in his chambers on Vitheros Prime, reading the casualty reports with trembling hands. He was old now, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His scales had faded to dull gray. His eyes were clouded with age. He had ruled the council for over a century, guiding them through countless crises. But this was different. This was extinction. He reached for his communication device and entered a code he had never thought he would use. A code that connected directly to the one power in the galaxy that might be able to help. A code that connected to humanity, Chancellor Maria Santos. It received the message in her office on New QAnon. She was 73 now, her hair completely white, her face lined with years of responsibility. She had led the Dominion through its greatest challenges, building it from a collection of refugees into the most advanced civilization in known space. She read Zelkoth's message 3 times. Then she laughed, a harsh sound that startled her advisors.
Out, they want our help,
she said. The council that threw us away like garbage wants us to save them. Admiral Patricia Cole, now the Supreme Commander of the Dominion Defense Force, stepped forward. She was 87 years old, her body frail but her mind still sharp as a blade. The swarm is a threat to everyone, Cole said. If they destroy the council, they will come for us next. I know. Santos closed her eyes, thinking, I know what we should do. The practical thing. The strategic thing. But part of me wants to say no. Part of me wants to let them face the consequences of their arrogance. That would make us no better than them. Santos opened her eyes and looked at her old friend. They had been through so much together. The exile. The founding? The wars and the peace and everything in between? No, she said finally. It would not. You are right. We will help them. Not because they deserve it. Not because we owe them anything. We will help them because that is who we are. That is who we choose to be. The Dominion First Fleet departed within a week. 150 warships. Crewed by men and women who had grown up in the Outer Rim, who had never seen Earth, who knew the Council only as the enemy that had tried to destroy them. Admiral Kevin Shaw commanded the fleet. He was 43 years old, born on a refugee ship during the Exodus. His parents had told him stories about Earth, about the blue skies and green forests and cities that stretched to the horizon. He had always wondered what it would be like to see those things. Now he was leading his people back into the space that had rejected them. All hands, Shaw announced as they crossed into Council territory. This is the Admiral. We are about to engage an enemy, unlike any we have faced. The swarm does not think like us. It does not fear like us. It does not stop like us. But it can be hurt. It can be killed. And we are going to show the galaxy how it is done. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew on the monitors around him. We are not doing this for glory or revenge. We are doing this because there are innocent people dying out there. People who have done nothing wrong. People who deserve a chance to live. We have the power to give them that chance. That is enough reason. That is the only reason we need. The Battle of Kethros Prime began on a Tuesday. The Dominion fleet arrived just as the swarm was overwhelming the Council's last defensive line. Admiral Shaw did not hesitate. He ordered his ships into the heart of the enemy formation. Weapons blazing. Human technology had advanced far beyond what the Council remembered. Antimatter torpedoes tore through swarm carriers, igniting chain reactions that destroyed dozens of ships at once. Plasma lances cut through their smaller craft, like sunlight through fog. Gravitic disruptors pulled their formations apart, leaving them vulnerable and confused. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the destroyer Relentless during the battle. She was 35 years old, with red hair and a temper to match. Her ship was small, barely a fifth the size of the swarm carriers. But she flew it like it was an extension of her own body. The Relentless was hit 17 times during the battle. Systems failed. Crew members died. At one point, the entire port side of the ship was exposed to vacuum. But Lisa kept fighting, refusing to give ground. When her main weapons failed, she made a decision that would be remembered for generations. All hands abandon ship, she announced. Get to the escape pods now, Captain, her first officer asked, confusion in his voice. I am going to ram that carrier, Lisa said, pointing at the largest swarm vessel on her screen. I am going to put our reactor right down its throat and light it up. But I need you all off this ship first. The crew evacuated in less than 4 minutes. Lisa waited until the last pod was clear. Then turned the Relentless toward the enemy carrier and pushed the engines to maximum. The impact was visible from 100 miles away. The human destroyer hit the swarm carrier at full speed, its reactor detonating on impact. The explosion consumed both ships entirely, along with a dozen smaller swarm vessels caught in the blast radius. Lisa ejected 3 seconds before impact. Her pod was picked up by a Dominion cruiser 2 hours later. All 230 members of her crew survived. She had destroyed a ship 50 times the size of her own. The battle lasted 9 hours. When it was over, the swarm had been broken. Not destroyed entirely, but scattered and wounded, fleeing back into the darkness between the stars. They would not return for a long, long time. Admiral Shaw landed on Kethros Prime to receive the Council's official thanks. High Arbiter Zelkoth met him personally, his ancient body supported by mechanical devices. His eyes showing something that might have been shame. You saved us, Zelkoth said, his voice barely above a whisper. Shaw looked at him for a long moment. He thought about everything his people had suffered. The exile. The journey. The years of building and struggling in the darkness. He thought about his parents, who had died never seeing Earth again. He thought about all the children who had grown up knowing only the Outer Rim. Yes, he said finally. We did remember that. Remember who we are. Remember what we can do. And remember that we chose to help you, even after everything you did to us. He turned and walked back to his shuttle. We will not always be so generous, he added over his shoulder. Zelkoth watched him go, feeling something cold settle in his chest. He had ruled the council for over a century. He had always believed they were the greatest civilization in the galaxy, the wisest, the most powerful, the most important. He was wrong. Humanity was all of those things now, and they would never let him forget it. 30 years had passed since the exile, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had once been. The swarm had destroyed 3 member species entirely and left for others crippled and broken. Their great fleets were gone. Their ancient cities lay in ruins. Their reputation for power and wisdom had been shattered forever. The Terran Dominion, meanwhile, had grown into something magnificent. 200 worlds spread across the outer rim and beyond, connected by trade routes and communication networks that spanned light years. 40 billion people lived under the Dominion's protection, working and building and dreaming together. Their technology had advanced so far beyond the councils that comparisons seemed almost meaningless. Chancellor Anthony Baker traveled to Vitheris Prime for a summit that would change everything. He was 48 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle voice that could fill a stadium without ever raising in volume. Before entering politics, he had been a teacher on one of the outer colonies, spending his days helping children understand the universe around them. He had never expected to become chancellor. He had never wanted power. But his people had chosen him, and he would not let them down. The council chamber was smaller than he had imagined. Old records showed it had once held thousands of beings, representatives from every corner of the galaxy. Now only a few hundred seats were filled. Many species had been destroyed. Others had simply given up, retreating to their homeworlds to wait for the end. Arbiter Mela rose to greet him. She was a crystalline being from the Silicari Collective, her body made of living stone that seemed to glow from within. She had replaced Zelkoth after the old reptilian had finally died, worn out by age and failure. "Chancellor Baker," she said, her voice like wind through glass. "Thank you for coming. I know the journey was long, not as long as some journeys my people have taken." Anthony replied gently. They sat together in a small room off the main chamber, surrounded by ancient artifacts and faded banners. Once this room had been used for the most important negotiations in the galaxy. Now it felt almost forgotten. "We have a proposal," Malera began. "The Council has discussed this at length, and we are unanimous in our decision." She paused, seeming to gather herself. "We would like to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, a seat at our table, a voice in all our decisions. You would be equals among us, with all the rights and privileges that entails." Anthony listened quietly, his hands folded in his lap. He had known this offer was coming. His advisors had prepared him for it. They had argued about how to respond, debating for days about the best path forward. In the end, Anthony had made the decision himself. "No," he said. The word hung in the air between them. Malara's crystalline face showed something that might have been surprise. "No," she repeated. "Oh," Anthony confirmed. "We will not join your council. May I ask why?" Anthony stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Vitheris stretched toward the horizon, its crystal spires catching the light of the setting sun. It was beautiful, he thought. Beautiful and old and tired. 30 years ago, my people stood in this very building and were told they were not welcome in the galaxy, he said. They were told they were dangerous, aggressive, unworthy of a place among civilized species. They were sent into the darkness to die. He turned back to face Malera. But we did not die. We built something new. Something different. Something that does not rely on fear and hierarchy and the belief that some species are better than others. He paused. Your council represents everything humanity has moved beyond. We do not want to be part of it. Malara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Then what do you propose? Something new, Anthony said. A partnership of equals. Not a council that judges and punishes, but an alliance that supports and strengthens. Any species can join, regardless of their history or their power. The only requirement is a commitment to mutual respect and peaceful cooperation. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small document, handwritten on paper from New QAnon. Call it the Stellar Compact. Humanity will not lead it. No single species will. But we will help build it, and we invite anyone who shares our vision to join us. He placed the document on the table between them. This is what we offer. Not membership in your council. Partnership in something better. Malera studied the document for a long time. Her crystalline fingers traced the words, feeling the texture of the paper, the weight of the ink. You could demand anything, she said finally. You have the power, the technology, the strength. You could make us kneel, yes, Anthony agreed. We could, but that is not who we are. The Stellar Compact was founded 1 month later. 12 species signed the original charter, including what remained of the Galactic Council. Within a decade, membership had grown to over 50 species. Within 2 decades, Council itself voted to dissolve and merge with the Compact. The galaxy had changed forever. On the 30th anniversary of the exile, humanity held a day of remembrance. Not a celebration of victory, but a reflection on how far they had come and how much they had sacrificed to get there. Admiral Patricia Cole gave the keynote speech. She was 97 years old, her body frail and her hair pure white. But her voice was still strong, and her words carried across the millions who had gathered on New QAnon to hear her. 30 years ago, we were thrown away, she began. Cast out by species who thought they knew better. Sent into the darkness by beings who believed we were too dangerous to live among them. They expected us to die. They expected us to wither and fade and be forgotten. She paused, looking out at the crowd. So many faces. So many stories. So many lives that had been built from nothing. They were wrong. About everything. About who we were. About what we could become. About the strength that lives in every human heart. She raised her hand, pointing toward the sky. Look up there. Look at the stars. Those are our stars now. Those are our worlds. Those are our people, spread across the galaxy that tried to destroy us. We did not just survive. We did not just endure. We thrived. We grew. We became something greater than anyone imagined. Her voice rose, filling the air with passion and pride. 8. They tried to erase us from history. Instead, we wrote a new chapter that will never be forgotten. They tried to make us small. Instead, we built a dominion that stretches across the stars. They tried to teach us our place. Instead, we taught them theirs. She lowered her hand, her eyes shining with emotion. This is what humanity does. This is who we are. When they push us down, we get back up. When they close doors, we build new ones. When they tell us something is impossible, we prove them wrong. She smiled, the smile of a warrior who had seen too much, but still believed in something good. We are humanity. We are the species that never gives up. We are the children of Earth, and we have built a home among the stars. Not Baka,